Okay, I'm starting right now. Well, hello. I need to start that over. I don't know what I was going to say. Like,
taking the plane off and landing it is the hardest part.
Yeah. Okay. So, am I ending this too, John?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
No, you should
All right.
keep that in.
Oh, we'll keep it in there.
Hello and welcome to episode 20 of the How to Film Weddings podcast. My name is Nick Miller, and I am joined by my good friend, Mr. Johnny Bunn. Johnny, how you doing, man?
Man, that is not my name. It is John Bunn, and I'm doing great. And I'm kind of on this high after our conversation today.
Yeah, we just spent the last hour plus talking with Calen and Kristine Rhome of White and Revery. We talked about...
We made it. We did it. We have arrived.
Yeah. By the transitive property, we are now rock stars. Is that how it works?
Yes, the transitive property.
Yeah, math. Anyway, we talked about lots of different stuff. We talked about how they started their business. We spent a lot of time talking about branding and how important it is to your business and how to have a good, solid brand so that people can find you and you'll be known and you'll be hired for the right clients and people. And then we talked about education and venture. I know so many of you are really excited about venture, and you're going to want to listen to the end because Calen is giving all of our listeners a special deal on the White and Revery LUTs, which I use them. They're fantastic. So here we go with episode 20 of the How to Film Weddings podcast with Calen and Kristine of White and Revery.
Let's do it.
Well, we are super excited that Calen and Kristine of White and Revery are joining us today. Why don't you guys say hello?
Hey, thanks for having us.
Hi.
Yeah, we are super excited to have you. And before we kind of get into what we're going to talk about today, why don't you guys just kind of give us a quick rundown of your story and how you got started and how long you've been in business and all that kind of stuff.
Okay. So where do you want
You
to start?
take it away, babe.
Oh, no. So we are White and Revery. We started, Calen and I actually met when we were little teeny kids. Teenagers.
Yeah, high school sweethearts.
High school sweethearts. And we started dating when we were like 15, 17, and then ended up getting married. And we had an amazing wedding filmmaker.
Yeah, Daniel Chestnut from Paperback Weddings.
Yeah.
And he filmed our wedding out in Colorado, and we also had a photographer come along, Tyler Branch, and they were just starting up Paperback Weddings. And we loved what he created for us, and I think that's what originally sparked us to start pursuing wedding filmmaking a couple years later.
Yeah, we it was a little bit of a journey. There's a lot of like things that happened in between that kind of like triggered, okay, this is something we really need to be doing. And then and so we just picked up some cameras. Honestly, I was the first one to show up to a shoot. My best friend, she actually runs Darling Juliet Photography. Her name's Julia Cox, and she texted me one day and said, hey, listen, I have this editorial shoot that I'm doing, and I really want someone to do like a behind the scenes video for it. And I know you have that Canon T3i camera that can switch to video mood.
Such a good starter.
Heck yeah. And so I showed up and was just like in the corner Googling and trying to text Calen frantically saying, I don't know how to turn this from photo mode to video mode. And like I Googled it in the corner. I had no idea what I was doing. And I had so much fun, like running around, videoing whatever was happening. I went home. We had Final Cut.
Our first wedding we actually filmed. We actually got gifted Final Cut Pro X because the groom worked at Apple, and so that was technically our payment.
Yeah,
nice. It worked.
So we had Final Cut, and I just closed up in my room and spent like 8 hours editing and just had so much fun. And I remember just texting the whole time to Calen, this is like so much fun. I love every bit of this. And yeah, it was really exciting. And then 2 months later, we filmed our first wedding. The next wedding we filmed, we actually got paid for, and we were freaking out.
We got paid
how much? How much did you get paid?
Oh, we got paid $1,000. And I remember looking at Calen while we were eating our vendor meal, just like, this is amazing. Calen, if we did 10 weddings a month, we would make $10,000 a month. And
a month.
And it was like, I remember just
incredible.
Like my mind was just blown. And a week before the wedding, we found out that the whole ceremony was going to be in Spanish. And so we were like, oh, we don't know what to do there. But
it's a Catholic Spanish mass. Yeah.
So it was our first Catholic ceremony to ever attend either. So like I didn't know anything what was going on. And I remember they wrote a check out to White and Revery, our company name that we didn't know as business owners that you need to make sure you have a business account set up. Like, I mean, we were like young guns here. Like we had, humble beginnings here.
Love this.
They had their exit and I had to go chase down the car and be like, oh, could you write this out to Calen Rhome instead of White and Revery? And I gave them space, but also they were like driving out and doing their exit and then parking. And
running after them.
They were going to come back. And I was like,
I can't
catch
go.
this. So very humble beginnings.
And that started about 7 years ago. So we've been doing it full time. Have we been doing it full time? Yeah, 6 years, I think. And we started 7 years ago.
Okay, cool. So you started off, 6-7 years ago, charging $1,000 for your first. What are kind of your packages look like now, and what kind of ballpark are you charging, and how many are you shooting a month or a year, kind of that kind of stuff.
We've come a long way in the sense of when we
Sure.
first started. Thankfully, we had another filmmaker because we used to live in Orlando, Florida, and Nate Purr, he was a really close friend of ours, gave us a lot of good, healthy feedback on, hey, these are the lenses to get. Here's how you should be charging. You need to raise your prices, kind of stuff. And we
one thing I remember him doing actually, and I'm like forever grateful for this. I think he talked to Calen one day and said, hey, listen, you really need to raise your pricing because it's making the rest of us, like it's bringing down the market average. Mm-hmm. And Calen was like, oh, I mean, I was too scared to raise my prices. And like, that's literally where we were. We were just like, oh, we're too nervous to raise our prices because are people still going to book us and things like that. And Nate kind of explained to us, no, like this makes the average in the area kind of lower and that's not good. Like you need to raise it for other filmmakers too. And it was like this light bulb moment where we're like,
but he also mentioned that, you might not feel like you're worth it at this point, but whenever you're booking a wedding, it's a year out. At a year point, you are going to be worth it. So you're pricing yourself at where you're going to be as well. So that really helped me understand, okay, I might not feel like I'm worth, $1,500 for this wedding, but in a year, I'll definitely be worth that. So understanding the pricing, that was a really big push. And back then we had our prices based off length of films, pretty much like a 5 to 7 minute film, 8 to 10, 10 to 12. We put things in there and we shot because we things like a photographer in the sense of details and kind of package stuff because that's all we knew. And as we continued after a few years, we started realizing that most of our clients and the type of films that we were wanting to tell turned out to be, best displayed in a 6 to 8 minute highlight film story. And so we wanted to go ahead and start forcing our couples to only have this package option because like 80% of them were choosing it already. And we felt like that was our style and our tweak a little bit to it, that we loved that time frame. So we ended up switching to one package and then having an a la carte system. So now we have technically 1 or 2 packages. We just have one base package that has just a highlight film, and then the next one on top of that is like a cleanup edit of full ceremony, full toasts, and then a la carte on top of that. But we're also putting together a separate package because some weddings require multiple day shoots, and we've been told a couple times that, hey, we kind of need this a little bit more customized, which is totally fine, but it's easier to present it to them with things already collected together. So we're working on a separate package for those specific weddings that are like 3-day shoots and travel where they're going to need a lot of doc edits and kind of make it easier instead of them trying to figure out, well, I don't really know what I need. So that's kind of where
just
we're at
a big note,
packaging.
we don't think every best film out there is 6 to 8 minutes. We actually just prefer editing that length. I feel like for me personally, when I'm sitting down to edit, no matter what I try, that's just my comfort level of I've included everything and things like that. I know a lot of people who say their favorite length to edit is 10 minutes. Goodness. or the 3 to
John,
5
isn't
minute.
that you? Isn't that you?
They usually end up 8 to 10 minutes.
8 to 10.
mine, So,
And
yeah.
in reality, a lot of mine end up between 7 and 9 minutes. But like I always say 6 to 8 because I just like to under promise and over deliver to my clients. But yeah, and I also have a lot of friends who say their favorite length to edit is 3 to 5 minutes. And so we just kind of like played around with it. We offered all of them in the beginning as we were starting our company, and then said, hey, here's what you can order. And we figured out what most people were ordering. And then we also figured out what we feel most comfortable editing. And then from there, we have so many people who ask us all the time. They'll send us messages on Instagram, which we don't hate. But people will ask us, hey, what are your prices? I really want to see like what I should be offering. I'm starting off. And I'm like, listen, if I were to send you my packages right now, I feel like it would actually be a disservice to you because you wouldn't be playing around with edit links. You wouldn't be challenging yourself to figure out like, what is it that I need to be like, what do I feel most comfortable with? Like, what's my style end up looking like? Do I have 1 shooter or 2 shooters? Do I have 3 shooters? Things like that. So I think that's kind of what we do. And we also give people the option to add on video links. So I don't ever want to close budgets in and say, you can only spend X amount. We also obviously give them the option to get longer films if they want. But anyway.
Yeah, and that's really good wisdom there from Kristine about there is something to this process. Yes, we want to know when we're first learning out like what all the people that we look up to are doing and how they're charging and what they're spending. But at the end of the day, you need to figure out what works for you and what works for your business. And sadly, the best way to figure that out is to spend time and years in figuring that out.
Yeah.
You know, oh, I really like doing this length of edit, or this is how much time I need to spend at a wedding day to do this or whatever. So, that's a good thing to keep in mind, that it takes some time to, figure out where you need to go and what you need to do in your business. One thing that you kind of touched on this a little bit, Kristine, saying, you like to edit. Why don't you guys talk for a second? Your husband and wife team. So why don't you talk about kind of your roles, maybe on the wedding day, and then maybe like post, like when you get home and after that.
Yeah. Okay. So on the wedding day, I typically am doing I feel like I'm doing a lot more directing, and Calen is running around filming. So if like
Chaotic, just running around.
Calen's just running around.
No direction.
But I'm often the one who's saying, like, oftentimes even during portraits, I'll set my camera down so that I'm just all eyes and directing. Okay, pull your hand up here, put your hand on the top of his shoulder, bring it down. That is if the couple seems like they're comfortable or if they really need that kind of direction. Other than that, I'm just, feeling them out. Like, what do we need? Walk this way or come over here. So I'm the one oftentimes directing. Calen grabbed the shot. Calen, you know what to do. And yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and I would say Kristine is usually shooting tighter throughout the day. So she usually has a closer angle, and I usually have a wider angle. We've just felt more comfortable in those positions. And, when we split up, I'll obviously be with the groomsmen and the groom, and then Kristine will take care of the bride. We try to stick together if the itinerary works out that way. And
it's
if
funner
not,
that way.
we can easily just balance it out. So I think I'm usually gimbal based whenever it comes to ceremony, portrait time, and a couple of the getting ready moments. And then the rest of the time is pretty much monopod or tripod based. And Kristine is usually definitely tighter on a monopod for the most part.
And then when we're in post, oftentimes I'm doing a lot of client communication and editing. And then Calen does a lot of the real fun color grading. Like, I've never color graded a film before. Calen does all of that. He mixes all the audio. As a matter of fact, when I hand it over to him, oftentimes I don't even care to touch the audio. Like, it's messy for the first draft, and Calen goes in and he's like, this is my moment. This is where I come in and shine.
Yeah, I'll usually dump all the stuff and, back it up to our RAID and get everything in the project ready so that either I'm prepping it or we have an employee or an assistant or an intern that's going to be prepping the weddings. And then it's ready for Kristine to start the creative edit. And then she passes it off to me for audio and coloring and mastering. And then we get ready to, send it off to the client.
Yep.
That's awesome. I was going to jump into and ask, I'm sitting here thinking, we were talking kind of about the types of weddings that you guys are doing, how you guys have branded different things. Kind of how many are you trying to shoot in 2019? I know you guys are doing other things with workshops and things like that. But like, how many weddings is like your happy place? And then do you have like a ballpark that you're trying to get? I don't want to like jump too much into pricing necessarily, but like what does it cost to get White and Revery to be at your wedding?
I would say for our comfortable space, I feel like every year we keep on diminishing how many weddings we're filming, which has been great for our family life because we have a 2.5-year-old daughter, Zeely, that we want to spend more time with and be more present. And we've kind of built our company to become more destination based. And so we're trying to shoot a lot more local to Colorado, but the season here is usually May through October. So there's certain months that we'll hold out and not take any weddings if we can, unless it's a Colorado booking. So it's a little bit easier. But I would say this year our goal was to shoot about 10 weddings. But right now I think we're closer to 15. And
it happens.
And it's only February.
Yeah. And that's also, we've just added photography to the lineup too. So we have a couple weddings where we also have our photographer Levi that's going to be lead shooting for photography, and we're doing video as well. So I feel like we're comfortable with 10 to 15, and we're playing with the idea also this year as bringing on some extra second shooters. So maybe there's a moment where it makes more sense for our family that maybe Kristine goes out with the second shooter and films a wedding, and I stay back home with our daughter, and then vice versa. So we're looking into that, but I would say 10 to 15. And on our website, our prices start around $7,500. I would say most of our work is probably $9,000 to $12,000 is for the weddings, is what our
awesome.
commitment that most couples are doing.
That's great.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know too, like having 2 little girls of my own, I remember the first season, like when she's a baby or newborn, it's kind of like, okay, cool. Like you can go, like you don't notice that I'm gone for a day or whatever. And then she was like 1 and then 2 and then 3 and she's 8 now. And it was like, oh my goodness. Like if I'm gone on Saturday and tired on Sunday and you're in school Monday through Friday, like I missed a whole week with you, and it was just like I can't do that. And so we've diminished, every year we've done less and less weddings to where like right now I'm at 19 weddings booked for the year, and I'm like I'm happy if I don't book anything else. And like it really puts you in a position to, when you're already booked that much, to be able to raise the prices, which I've realized like saying no has made it way easier to say yes to the ones that come in that you really want.
Yeah. That's a really good thing to like sit on there. Saying no sometimes actually has really opened up a lot of better opportunities for us.
Yeah.
Okay, continue with what you're saying.
That's
kind
of the next question I wanted to kind of ask you is like, how has that affected you? Like, I know by saying no, like 2 years ago we shot 40 weddings. Last year we shot 28 or 30 weddings, and now this year it's like hopefully shooting 20, and that's given me more time to like focus on how to film weddings and the things that really I'm drawing a lot of energy from and excitement and happiness. So shooting less, saying no more, how has that affected you guys with being able to do things like that make you happy? Family time, how has that affected you guys?
I mean, in reality, I feel like it has helped us. The biggest thing, in reality, it's helped us in many, many ways to get clients that we feel resonate a little bit more with our style. And then also our work-life balance, I feel like has been so much better. I mean, we, especially after having a kid, I mean, you're right. You can easily wake up one morning and be like, man, I didn't get to see them at all this weekend, or I didn't get to see them at all this week, or whatever. Especially as you start factoring in travel and things like that. And then also there are times whenever Calen and I look at each other and we're like, man, we woke up together, got ready together, dropped off the kid together, and worked all day together, and then had dinner together, and just didn't feel like there was actually like a connection there between us, because it's all like work. Parenting can feel like work a lot, and then work is just a lot of work. And then, what about like how he's feeling? What about how's Calen doing? And I feel like having a little bit less, like charging more and not being so overloaded in our minds with work all the time has given us more freedom to step back and just be like, okay, Calen, how are you doing? So
that's huge.
Yeah, I think that's another thing that, we're kind of talking about, when people contact you asking about pricing and stuff, that's kind of another unfortunate thing about running a business, right? Is you kind of have to go through that growing pain of finding no business, and then being in that sweet spot of not charging enough and getting super busy and super booked. And then you're like, holy cow, I need to like cut back on all this stuff, and someone was asking me like, how do you balance all this stuff? And I'm like, sadly, it's kind of a trial and error kind of thing. Like, you try and do what's best for you and your family, and then sometimes you just have to sit down with, contemplating with yourself, or, sit down with your spouse or whatever, and just kind of talk this out and figure it out. And how can you balance having a family and doing a work and, doing all that stuff. And so if any of our listeners are in like that season of life right now, just like work through it and figure it out. And hopefully, you can come out better on the other side.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a plus side too. Whenever we had our daughter, we had to start charging a lot more for travel cost. And that's what kind of kept us competitive whenever we were traveling a lot, is because we kind of built in the price of travel into our package, so that whenever we said we had a travel cost, it was much lower to the client. And then we're like, okay, we can't afford this. We have to charge like, $1,500 for travel,
also,
because we have, childcare and everything.
It
and
also didn't cost us very much when we were traveling. We had the companion pass, and we have
Southwest,
friends and family all over the country. So oftentimes there were times when we would get back from traveling for a wedding and like laugh about how cheap it was, like $250 total after everything. And just because of the hotel cost, and so our travel costs were so cheap. And now just childcare alone can be $600, $700 for us to go out for a weekend. That doesn't include the cost of our, food and the airfare. But
there is a plus side, because whenever we started doing that, we were nervous that we were going to lose clients, because it's like, hey, here's a price, but now here's a bigger jump in an extra cost, almost like an extra tax to some extent. And we realized that didn't sway anybody. And it's also easier to mention, well, we have childcare, okay, well, that's a valid reason, I guess.
Yeah.
But what was really cool is, we've had our daughter, and she, before her 2-year birthday, she had flown 40 times. One thing that's really great about our job too is that we had one point where we, a couple inquired for us to travel to Iceland to film their wedding, but we were all booked up for that month, but we could take it if we wanted to. And we just mentioned, well, the only way we can make it happen is if we bring a nanny with us, just to make it work. And they ended up going for that. And so we brought Kristine's mom with us on the trip, and she had never left the country. She had never left the country. So, wow, and then also our daughter Zelie got to fly with us over to Iceland, and on the flight over, both of our daughter and her grandmother got to see the Northern Lights outside the window. And that's just a moment so cool. that we couldn't imagine that this job would have brought us to, is to experience family in that way. It was just a unique moment where it's like, man, where are we right now? This is amazing. So I think that's really kind of cool. A lot of the blessing and the high side of our job that we've really valued and appreciated.
Yeah, for sure.
That's great. That's great. That's really cool. Kind of, we're talking about pricing and working together and all of that stuff. Let's shift a little bit. And whenever I met you guys at the first venture workshop, year and a half ago, ish, maybe a little longer, whatever that was. And one of the things that Kristine, you talked a lot on was your branding. And I think that you guys are incredible with what you have done with White and Revery and your business and how you've branded it. So why don't you just spend a little bit of time kind of talking about branding and the role that it has played in your business, and just kind of your general thoughts about branding.
Yes. So my thoughts on branding in general, I'll just start with just the fact that I feel like it is so much more important than what appears to be. It's so much more important than what I think a lot of people realize. I spent months not going to a specific coffee shop because I felt like their branding was horrific.
I love that. I do the same thing.
And I didn't realize it until I actually vocalized it to Calen. I was like, I would never go there. Like, look at that font. And then I thought about it. I was like,
is that Papyrus? No. I will not.
Oh my gosh. So, I just really, it was like a subconscious thing. And I think that that's actually like a lot more, who didn't put their phone on silent?
Oh, come on.
Dang it, Nick.
Come on.
I did.
She was about to drop some real golden wisdom right there.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I'm
it's
sorry.
Okay.
How many times? Back to you, Kristine.
Back to me. Okay. So I just think it's a lot more important than what a lot of people realize. There's a lot of times I go to someone's wedding filmmaking website, and I think, goodness, this could be a plumber's website for all I know. I don't know, because I don't see anything that is making me feel like this is a wedding videographer. And so there, like, that's really something I've experienced once before. And I'm not going to say that I'm a branding guru or any, like, you know, like I have any major wisdom or education on this topic, but I just think it's a lot more important than what a lot of people think. And so we've been going through really interesting, like, branding, like, what do we do here? Because for a long time, our target client was the adventurous forest, like oceanside, mountaintop, you know, running through the wild wilderness kind of clients. And like, that was what really, like, one of the things that really resonated with us. And eventually we got to the point where we said, we love all of these cool locations, but the reality is the most important thing to us is who these people are. And like, they could be running through the coolest location, and if they are just really mean people, like, I don't actually want to be there. Like, I'm not drawn to the
100%.
The location as much as I am, like, the cool clients and people. And I also think that we've kind of we've had to raise our prices a little bit outside of that, like, adventure price bracket. Does that make sense?
I feel like we've kind of moved into a different demographic once we kind of went over, I think, I'd say around 5,500 to 6,000. I think above that starts to get a little bit different of a clientele. And that's what we're noticing, is that, okay, does that mean we need to shift our style? Does that mean we need to shift our color grading? Does that mean we need to shift the way we edit our films to attract that type of, you know, clientele, if that's the direction we want to go? So we're kind of in this weird space where, I mean, within 1 year, we raised our prices from 5,500 to 7,500. So kind of a big jump. And we still get a lot of inquiries where, and we're only taking, you know, 10 to 15. So those clients, and we also want to be open to those couples that probably don't have a big budget, but they have an amazing story that we want to be a part of. We're still open to that, but we've noticed that the way we've branded ourselves is extremely important with the type of clientele that we want to attract. And it's interesting because during Venture, whenever we started talking about our company and our mission statement, I felt like it was twofold. We were starting to, part of our market was our brides and grooms, but then also part of our market were other wedding filmmakers and education. So we started realizing, okay, do we brand for both of those markets, or do we brand just for clients, or, you know, so we're kind of, you know, figuring out, okay, our website's definitely for clients. We have maybe 10 to 20 weddings, but they're all different styles and adaptable to those clients. So it's not like a very specific style, I think, which I think is unique. And then also our Instagram, we might have a lot more focused on our clients, but then also wedding filmmakers. And we try to keep it nice and branded, but then in our stories, we'll keep it raw and fun and like personality based. So trying to be very specific in different markets to find, you know, with who's our market, you know what I mean? And I think that's kind of where we're adapting our brand in different areas.
Yeah, that's really good. And another thing that one of the probably the biggest misconceptions that people have about branding is they just think, oh, I got a new brand. Do you like my logo? You know, they very simplify it to, you know, a logo is my branding. So what I lost what I was going to say. What would you say to someone that, you know, has this, you know, new logo or whatever, and they really are interested in the idea of like having a brand? Like, how do you go about it? How do you make it? What would be some advice that you would have?
So I think one of the biggest parts of branding is defining who you're marketing to, in my personal opinion. Again, it's not like I went to school and took all kinds of great, you know, classes on this or anything like that. It's just like being a millennial who looks around at the world every day. Like, who is your target market? And that, I think, you should be looking at your font choices. Does your font feel clean and refined? Does it feel Comic Sansy?
Is it adventurous? I mean, the color palette on your website is a huge thing that also reflects if you have a bold logo and then you have very earthy tones versus maybe you want to have a luxury brand, so maybe more black and white, or like a type of just different versions that kind of reflect that logo. I think it should be your color palette, your font choice, your website, the type of thumbnails that you're using is a big thing. I think that also, I kind of have a pet peeve about certain thumbnails that I'm like, oh, this is beautiful, and I I click on it and then realize, oh, that was the photographer's picture with a totally different color grade that isn't reflected in the
feel
film.
deceived.
And it feels like a misconception or I feel misled in the video.
I've been tricked.
Immediately.
Sure.
But also that's one thing that I look at a lot is just color. So I think also on your Instagram, if you want to attract, adventurous couples, then you need to be posting things that reflect that. And also I think that, just like your website, your brand, your personality, everything should be cohesive with who you're marketing to. And it shouldn't feel like, they're very refined and beautiful, but their logo is it just doesn't reflect that, or we've had a person that we've been working with in consulting and her website just didn't really reflect how amazing her films were. And we were talking with her, and just with a couple changes, maybe a different template with Squarespace, or we had the logo needs to be centered but a different thumbnail, instantly transforms the input they're going to get from the client and whether that client sticks around and checks out more of their films.
I have another thing to say about this. If you are targeting brides between $5,000 to $10,000 price ranges, and you have branding that looks like you might have paid $25 for a logo. It's like the client is looking for a certain quality when they're in like a certain price range. If you're wanting luxury couples, you pretty much should be investing some money into like a professional that's going to help you. That's a big deal.
And that also reflects, I know this kind of sounds a little weird, but I mean, that reflects into your clothing on the wedding day.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it and you show up and if you have like, say for a guy, just have, a double-breasted jacket or something, and just, it'll reflect the way that your films and your personality is portrayed. And so we've actually been adapting to that style a little bit more with our weddings because, excuse me, coordinators is now a big marketing for our weddings, and so we're getting a lot of leads now in that price range. They need to come from coordinators,
and
at least in Colorado.
Ranges,
so that's where we want to impress the coordinators, but we also want to show that our style and our personality reflects our weddings as well. So we'll dress up really nice, and I mean the coordinators remember us a lot more, and they're like, "Oh, I love that floral shirt you have, man. You guys just look really beautiful together."
We get comments on at just about every wedding. John, you were about to say something though on the pricing.
Well, I just think so we're averaging, we've moved up from our price range. We're in Tulsa, and it's somewhere we start on our website around $5,500, $6,000, but most people spend anywhere from $8,000 to $12,000. And in this market, I mean, that's very top of the, and I used to travel to California 5-10 times a year. I used to go I was just traveling like crazy, and then started wanting to be home more, that kind of thing, and started really figuring out how can I make more at home. And one thing that we did is we hired a branding person to help us rebrand our website and invested the money into that instead of the newest drone or whatever, because the bride didn't feel the difference between a Phantom 3 and a Mavic 2 Pro. They felt the difference between what it felt like on our Instagram and our website. We invested in all new clothing, and we started really, working with the coordinators and the planners. And there's this shift once you've gone past people trying to look like they're having a nice wedding to people that are just wealthy, that are putting on a really nice wedding. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with any of the, any of that, but whenever we were making that transition to we want to do figure budget weddings and up, that's what we started showing. That's what we started shooting like. That's what we started dressing like. That's how we started talking and communicating. And I think people that are wanting to just push wherever they're going, if you're showing up like I did in 2007 with Chuck Taylors and Holy Jeans, you're not going to be getting referrals for these $10,000 plus weddings. Mm-hmm. So, did you guys, I guess, bring in anybody, or, are you just kind of like you said, a millennial that just looks around the internet a lot, or what are you thinking about, constantly tweaking that brand? What's going through you guys' mind? Where are you looking for that inspiration?
I think with us, before we started filming weddings, we both worked in different jobs. So Kristine worked in sales for a company that managed YouTubers and handling a lot of different events. And so she was really into the millennial scene, I guess you could say, where she understood what people desired and wanted, and she's so great with people and communication. So that like kind of carried over into our company.
Yeah,
and then
that's
I
great.
used to work for a record label, and also we would do stuff. We would be like an agent to other different celebrities or people and bands, and I handled a lot of web development and coding for 5 years. So I did a lot of coding and branding, and I would be in charge of building websites and working with design. Even though I'm not a designer, I kind of know at least what looks good and what doesn't, not necessarily know how to get there. And so I think once we moved into our company, we would just surround ourselves with people that are talented. So the person that made our logo back in the day was actually a couple that we filmed their wedding, and he's a great designer, and so he made it our logo back then. Since I know how to do web development and coding, I could build our entire website from scratch with Squarespace, and we built our own template kind of around that. So that was custom for what we were doing. And then I think it's kind of like we spend a lot of time focusing on details, and I'm a very detail-oriented person. So if I'm making like an Instagram video, I might spend too much time on it, and Kristine has to tell me to stop. But all that little effort over time, I think, is what built up our name and our brand. And it's like, if we put something out, we want you to trust and know that it's going to be good quality, and not like, hey, we put out great quality and then sometimes we put out these other little films. I want you to know that every time we put something out, that it's going to live up to those expectations. And that's just part of being consistent over a long period of time. And I think that's what helped build out our social media company, or our brand, and then our website. And we get so many referrals that from clients. And I feel like that's because they find us all over the internet and our quality is consistent.
Yeah, when it comes to building a brand like that, like we want to, I want to have 10,000 Instagram followers in like the next month or whatever. Like we want to like get all this stuff, and we want it now. John and I talk a lot about, the crock pot method versus the microwave method. Like if you spend, like you have done, and we're trying to do, 4, 5, 6, 7 years, like building your business and building your brand, like after enough time has passed, like people don't even question whether or not it's quality. Like they followed you long enough and they just know that it's quality. And to our listeners, and we've preached this before and we'll continue to do that, like it takes time to build a brand. But if you put in the work, in years 2, 3, and 4 to try and build that, you'll reap the benefits of that in years 5, 6, and 7, and really be able to, build your brand and do that. One thing that I want to come back to is we were talking about spending money on logo design or a suite or a website or whatever. Isn't it really interesting how so many times you read in our video groups and stuff, people are like, they're not paying for this and I'm worth so much and like this. But it's like so many people are saying, hey, I'm worth this much money and I demand this, but yet they are trying to find the cheapest way possible that they can to make their stuff and build their craft. And I'm thinking, if you're wanting to charge a premium price for this product that you believe is premium, yet you're not willing to use premium services that have the best stuff, like there's something that needs to be changed. Something needs to be shifted.
And I would say at the beginning, yes, it makes sense to work within your means. If you have a budget and you're just getting started, use what's available to you.
Absolutely.
But when you have those moments and those opportunities to push the boundaries, that's where you do it. For instance, when we wanted to become destination based, we had a wedding that we were going to shoot in Atlanta, and we went all out for that wedding. The couple had an amazing story, location, and so we would make multiple videos beyond what their package was, and we would promote it. It would be the first video on our website. We would have multiple Instagram posts. We would make little bitty edits. I mean, that is this is the type of film we're shooting. And we would probably spend extra money on a song license because we knew that would be worth it, So realizing where to put your money and at the time to do it, and if that's reflecting the direction you want to go. I mean, even for instance, outside of weddings, like there's a company that we were wanting to rep and be like sponsored by, and we'd reach out and say, hey, we'd love to, chat or whatever. And I think at that point, we at least got some email conversations going because they checked out our work, but they just wanted to see if we're going to stick around and we're going to be consistent. And I think it took 2 years of developing that relationship before we got to that place. But they were kind of just watching to see, okay, are they going to follow through? Is their work going to be consistent? Are they going to be, teaching or training? Is it going to align with our direction as a brand? So I think that reflects in everything that you do.
Yeah. And I'm just crockpot, man. Like it's a real deal. Like
You should get one of those if you don't have one.
I do. I have it.
You're great
I have an
cooking.
Instant Pot.
Perfect.
My very few successful meals come from that thing.
You should follow Kristine's Instagram, Christy La La La, for some entertaining behind the scenes Instagram stories. Just saying.
I'm just very
is really
bad
good.
at cooking. No, but for real, I'm really just gonna like stress this a little bit, that really things do take time. And in that period, you're learning so much about, okay, what do I do in this situation? And, people who are first year people, there's so much to learn in that stage. And I do agree. You need to be paid what you're worth. And sometimes people learn things a lot faster and things like that. But there's a lot, you can see there's a lot of things that people are still learning in that first stage and those first couple years, even into 3 years. What do I do in this situation when the lighting is happening like this, or when the sound is like this? And I feel like Calen and I are still learning all the time at stuff. And so it's really, just never, there is a lot of, what am I trying to say here? I think there's a lot of importance in defining what you're worth and making sure that you're charging what you're worth. But then also don't be so, I'm worth this much and I am too good for these things.
Don't be too full of yourself.
Don't be too full of yourself. Like,
because
come on.
in that first year, as you're shooting, you may do great on some weddings, and then one wedding might be like, man, I just did not know how to adapt. And I think that's where a veteran or somebody that's been in the industry for over 3 or 4 years has seen a lot of different situations, and that they're learned to adapt. So I think that's the difference to see somebody that's seasoned, is like they can adapt to any kind of scenario, versus someone that's starting that has a couple great films, but they could get a film where they show up and things fall apart and they don't know how to adapt.
Calen came home from a wedding. Calen came home from a wedding recently that he really just said the entire experience was just knowing what you needed to do, like in the few minutes ahead of yourself, like anticipating.
It's all anticipation with the other filmmakers, knowing they're going to need this lens at this point. Oh, I see what they're shooting with. I know where they're going next. They're going to need this. I need to be there for them. Or they're not capturing this. I need to be. It's all anticipation. And I think that's something you only learn with time.
Okay. Have you seen that meme? Have you seen that meme that's been floating around that it says something to the effect of, it only took me 30 minutes to do this job, but it took me 10 years to figure out how to do it in 30 minutes. You're not paying me for the 30-minute time. You're paying me for the 10 years it took me to learn it like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just thought it was kind of applicable
100%
for what we're talking about.
I fully believe that. And Calen and I are not at 10 years doing this. And I feel like we still have more room to grow and more like spaces to learn things in. And
we still second shoot for other filmmakers. I mean, we're always learning.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I want to say one more thing about branding, then I want to move on a little bit and talk about the education stuff you guys are doing. I see Calen has his venture cup up right now.
Oh my God, that's so
Good.
embarrassing, Calen.
No, if you're not watching on YouTube, you should be watching on youtube.com/howtofilmweddings. We always love to plug that. But when we're talking about branding, I'm listening to you and I'm realizing, like, I think I found you guys with a video that you did on YouTube, like a behind the scenes at some kind of cabin. You were like showing us how to, like, how you did a shooting. And I was just like, man, these kids are like kicking my butt. Like, they're doing such a good job. And for the first, like, this is 12 years in for me, like the first 7 or 8 years, I put none of my name on my company. I never put my face out there. It was always like, well, they don't want a dude like at their wedding. Like, I don't know. Like, I just had these preconceived notions, like people aren't going to like me. Like, why would they want me at their wedding? And the thing that came to my mind when you guys are talking is that, like, you are your brand. And like, I want to hear from you guys about like, I know the people that are becoming really successful in our industry are the ones that they are themselves, but they're also their own brand. And so the way that they put themselves out there is attractive to other filmmakers or other, other brides. So like whenever like I started putting myself out there about 2 years ago and like my family and just, about me, brides would come in and say, oh my goodness, I love your daughter, Anna. She's so sweet. Tell me a little bit about how you are the brand. So what do you guys do to make sure that like you're branding yourselves to point to White and Revery?
It's interesting because I think as we've attached our name, like Calen and Kristine are White and Revery, we've been trying to move into a culture that is White and Revery instead of just Calen and Kristine. So anybody that works for us, that they reflect that culture, so that whenever you hire us, you are getting this, wedding film house or this collective. And I think it's been interesting for us to try to transition, not necessarily away from Calen and Kristine as the brand, but more so like it's us and other people, this culture. So we have an employee, Levi, that's part of our culture. And we've also had an associate where we were filming weddings, and we were booking him weddings underneath our brand. And we were setting up the exact same pricing package for him to shoot the wedding and for us, and booked about 10 weddings that actually worked. So I think whenever a client reaches out, they understand that they're getting a White and Revery product. And we also tell them that whether we're shooting it or not, we're touching your film. So whether we're touching your film, we'll touch it, or Kristine will, or an intern, or an editor, whoever it will be, you are getting this culture, this product. So I think that's where we're trying to move our company more into, this culture of White and Revery, and our personalities is a big thing, because we want people to be, they want to enjoy our time and be around them. And I think that's really important, especially that's what I think has gotten us really far with other photographers, is the way we connect with them on wedding days and coordinators, and that reflects our brand. So I think definitely transitioning a little bit of just me and Kristine to more people has been interesting for us to try to learn.
That was really scary at first, because I feel like we did wrap up a lot of our brand into us. And I loved that, honestly. I think that whenever we first got into the wedding scene, I didn't really see a lot of other brands doing that. Or at least a lot of like the bigger brands. I'm going through a list in my mind of all of my absolute favorite wedding filmmakers whenever I first started, and none of them, they were just a brand name. It wasn't like,
you didn't know who was shooting it.
I didn't even know who was shooting them. And sometimes going to the website, I didn't know who that was either. And I still absolutely loved them. They were still my greatest inspiration. I'm going to make a little shout out to Aaron, who left a comment on that Facebook thing. And I was fangirling when I first met him, because I had followed 31 Films and was like, oh my gosh, they are some of the best out there. And I genuinely love the idea of personally connecting with our couples. It was a big goal for us to be making sure that we weren't just showing up to the wedding day with strangers. That works 100% awesome for a lot of companies with specific business structures. But for us, I didn't really feel like it was what we were wanting. And we wanted a bit more of a personal connection. I also think it was because I came from like the YouTube world, where I was just in that scene where I was constantly watching and like knowing who I was, working with, because I would see them. They were so open about themselves and things like that. And I just kind of love that scene anyway. Where people feel more connected and things like that. Anyway, I agree with you. I oftentimes will show up and people are like, oh my gosh, it's Calen and Kristine, your daughter is so crazy cool. Yep. And she's so goofy. And I'm like, that means that they're following my personal account, not our company account.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
People want to know, when it comes down to it, people want to know who it is. That's where I go to when I go to any wedding filmmaker site is the about page. I want to see their face. I want to see, even if it's a collective, I want to see who all shooting with you, working with you. And so that's really and cool.
I think that YouTube and Instagram stories are a big part of that, because that's just been such a big part of our culture, such a big part of like the people that we're, working with, and our culture as humans now is just everyone's aware of YouTube, and they're all like, everyone's
quick,
so
accessible
open.
content. Yeah.
Yeah. And they all kind of like feel like they know who. It was interesting. We would hold these huge YouTube conventions, and people would walk up and you could really tell that they felt like so connected to this YouTuber because they had watched them and listened to them and like heard their thoughts.
So powerful.
And they feel like they know them. The number of times I would hear, oh my gosh, I just feel like I know you. And they're like, no, we've never met before. And
I don't know you, not even a little. You know me.
My wife and I have been, Jen, we've been kind of more purposeful in like showing us more on our, our Wild Oak Films Instagram and stuff. And I am amazed that by far the photos or videos that get the most interaction is stuff of us. Like it's not our brides. Like it might be the best wedding that we have ever filmed and it's so awesome, but we're getting way more interaction on posts and stuff that's about us and our family and that kind of stuff rather than because they want to know you. They want to feel like they connect with you. So that's all really good stuff. We're starting to run out of time here. We're getting short, and I know.
We can be here for a long time.
We can be here for a little bit longer.
Yeah,
Lies.
we have a little bit more till Christy's groceries
Get delivered.
Okay.
Millennial life, just got to get them ordered to show up.
Right. So one thing that I really want to talk with you guys about is you've really pushed hard and you're in the education space. And I know that you have a couple of really big things. One that's been out for a while, your Final Cut stuff, but then you're also just launching another venture and all that. So I just want you guys to spend a little bit of time and talk as much or as little about those things as you want to.
So we first started doing more education whenever we had about to have our daughter, and we needed some extra funds for a washer and dryer.
This is so funny.
So we started doing.
Hold on, can I tell this story because it's kind of funny?
Please tell.
So in January of that year, I remember having to start telling people who would reach out to us on social media, on our website, like on the contact form on our website and on Facebook and everywhere. People were coming to us all the time with gear questions. And it doesn't bother us, but I started counting my hours and realizing I was spending actually more time during the week responding to people who were asking gear questions than I was working on actual work. And I eventually got to the place where I was like, I'm so sorry, we're having to guard our time right now because I am realizing we're spending too much time on this, but we'll figure out something soon. That was in January. By May, we were about to have our first child, and we were looking around the house and we were saying, goodness, we need a washer and dryer, don't we? I guess the laundromat life doesn't really it's going to be a little tricky when we have a little daughter. And so we were like, there's this people are asking questions all the time. They just want to know if I could have paid to sit down with someone and ask them all of the questions, that would save me so much time
and money.
Literally. Oh my gosh. A lot of people say we save them a lot of money just by, giving them advice on certain
Matt
things.
Johnson says everyone spends more money with him, so we're a better investment. Just kidding.
So
just kidding, Matt.
Shout out to Matt.
So we were like, you know what? Why don't we just open it up and start doing these one-on-one consultations? And we started doing it. And it was initially because we were like, oh, we need a washer and dryer. Let's just find a way to make that extra money that we had not budgeted for. And so we did, and we started, we just fell in love with it. We were doing 4+ a week and just having so much fun with it that we then had a baby and had to put a giant hold on it and had to raise the price of it because we realized the amount of money you pay for childcare during that time. It just was, too much. So now we still continue to do those, but I think it also, through that process, we realized how many people were wasting time because they didn't know how to use their Final Cut program, which was kind of hilarious. We were like, oh my gosh, the number of times people just would be like, no.
Even simple things like multicam feature or a quicker way to color grade or the quick keys that will save you an immense amount of time. And I think that's because we've spent a lot of time. During lunch breaks, I'll watch YouTube tutorials after YouTube tutorials, and I've been certified in Final Cut Pro X as a trainer too. So I think after we realized,
Hold on, Calen got certified in Final Cut for fun. It was literally for fun. He's like, I just want to see. He left there with the highest scoring test. The only person who scored as high as Calen on that test was the guy who wrote the test.
I missed one question.
Nerd alert.
Yes,
so, and I was like, Calen, let's just
read manuals. That's what I like to do.
Calen is that nerd. And so Calen, we were just like, let's just make a course for it. And so we did, and we had a lot of fun doing it and love it. It was very successful very helpful.
Yeah, and it originally started too whenever we brought on an associate. We're like, hey, we need to train them. Well, here's a lot of consistent, repetitive workflows that we're writing down. Let's just turn this into a course. And we spent 2 months filming and recording, and so now we have a master class in Final Cut Pro X from editing, but it also includes all of our color grading, all of our audio tweaks, all of our templates. It's got our free LUT pack. It's got a lot of sponsor stuff in there, our exporting settings, everything. So we realized instead of making small little YouTube videos, it wouldn't really help out people. We needed this full piece. So that's why we kind of developed this entire course over 6 hours, and you can actually check that out on our website if people are interested.
And then, so also there was a time when we really wanted to meet Jay Worsley. We wanted to hang out with David Reynosa and Harmony. And also Seth Dunlap is like one of our greatest friends of all time. And we were just like, guys, let's find an excuse to all hang out. Let's put together like a workshop so that we all like get to like, you know, all powers combined on knowledge, but then also get to spend some time together. And
that's what birthed Venture a year and a half ago.
That was the initial thought behind Venture. We were like, let's create this like super, you know, just really intimate experience where we all went out into the mountains in Colorado, and you know, Nick joined us with your sweet wife, and it was just like such a fun time getting to hang out with other filmmakers and getting to hang out with each other and getting to like learn. And I felt like I genuinely learned from each of the teachers and things like that. And I was like, man, let's continue to do this. We did a second version and then a third one, and now the fourth one is coming up. And the fourth one, I feel like each time it's grown for sure.
Well, we've learned a lot in the process, because the first one I felt like, man, we're just going to pack so much knowledge. And I felt like we had so many classes going on at the first Venture that even people were falling asleep because it was just like exhausting, which we totally
Nick, did
understand.
You fall asleep? I don't remember.
You didn't. I was a good student.
You were a good student.
But I mean, I think after that we got a lot of got a lot of good feedback. And then in Silver Falls in Oregon the next year, we had the second one and did a lot more shooting and learned some more. So the third one that we just had in New Mexico, when we added Matt Johnson to the list, that one sold out. So all three of them sold out. And I think this next one, we realized that we were trying to increase the availability for people to come, and keeping everything all inclusive just didn't make sense on paper.
We've had we've sold out and then had a waiting list on all of our Ventures. So we were just like, let's make it so that it's not as complicated with how many people can come, but then let's also make it so that repeat people who want to come for the community are also having options for things to learn. Can I talk about this yet?
Yeah, you can.
So we're actually
exclusive information dropping.
Whoa. So we're expanding it a lot this year with more teachers, very, very carefully selected teachers. I think that bring each a unique perspective. I feel like no wedding company runs the same, and I think it's like really exciting to have so many different variations of that on the list of teachers. And then also we're bringing people who are not wedding filmmakers, people who are coming because their sole job is Facebook marketing, and their sole job is being a lawyer and things like that. So people who are not wedding filmmakers, who are kind of playing the guessing game, or who got advice that one time from that one person. Instead, we're bringing actual like professionals in to talk about like,
and like a designer about brand development, and then a lawyer about contracts, and like she said, marketing gurus or people that handle, websites or editing. And so we're going to have this whole resource that's going to be probably one of the biggest resources that you can attend for 4 full days. Things are going to be included of keynotes that are speaking, but there are also going to be a lot of shooting opportunities. There might be options too, where, maybe a drone class is going to go to the mountains 20 minutes away and do a lot of, droning is going to be an option. So there's a lot of really cool pieces. There's also going to be something really unique, is going to be the Venture Awards, which is going to be the first time that we're doing this, and it's going to be huge. I mean, black tie, suit up and everything. Ooh. It's going to be dressed up. We're going to have an awesome time. We're going to have a lot of like cocktail time and hanging out. We're going to have...
we're working with a lot of local people. So we're kind of doing like a neighborhood takeover in Denver. And we lowered the ticket price to make it a little bit more accessible, and so that more people can come. And we are doing like a neighborhood takeover where we're actually like... going to be bouncing around one of the coolest neighborhoods in Denver, Rhino. It's actually our home neighborhood.
Happens to be the one we live in.
Home neighborhood. Wow, I couldn't say that.
I see what you're doing here. You just didn't want to.
We just didn't want to have to travel. No.
Right.
No, but we've partnered with like a bar to make it a cool cocktail hour pricing, and
a couple different venues.
A welcome party there, and so we're just like really excited. It's going to be really freaking rad. I think one of the things people leave with the most from outside of knowledge is like the sense of community that everyone feels at Venture. I mean, people still to this day will talk in a lot of the Facebook groups, especially the Oregon one. Regularly having conversations in there, asking advice, posting exciting news and things like that. There's like such a community that happens at a lot of these ventures.
Like, hey, I just raised my prices above $5,000, booked my first $5,000 wedding, or all these different avenues. It's really great to see people encouraging each other, but also second shooting for them. I mean, it's awesome.
Yeah, it's really cool. And so we'll be trying to make sure we're allowing a lot of space for that as well as community growth. So.
Yeah, I will say I just booked a wedding because Becca Nieblock, she posted on the venture group and she was like, I can't do this. Who wants it? And I put my website out there and the couple hired me yesterday. It's in Seattle. I'm super excited about that.
That's
anyway.
awesome.
Yeah. So community, I can attest to that. I've gotten to talk to and know so many people, because of attending this venture workshop. So I don't think you mentioned when it is.
Oh.
You said it's in Denver.
So it is.
But when is it?
It is.
Give us all the details.
It is May 6th through the 9th. So it's going to be a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, 4 full days. And it'll be out here in Denver. It's about 30 minutes from the airport. And it is going to be awesome. There's a lot of cool places, a lot of hotels, a lot of Airbnbs that everyone's going to be able to hang out. So the only thing is that travel and accommodations and lodging is not included. That's why the ticket price is a lot more accessible this time. And it is a little bit different, but there's a lot more space for community, a lot more teachers, a lot more ways of learning, and extra time. So
we have it set up so that you can take the $10 train from the airport to downtown. So it'll be right in downtown. So you don't even have to get a rental car. And then we also keep the Facebook group pretty active. So once things officially launch and we are like officially like all the information is out there and things like that, we will be opening up a brand new Facebook group that's just for the Denver group that people can communicate and say, hey, I'm going to need I have an extra room at my Airbnb. Who wants to chip in or whatever? And so people do that all the time. It's
and
like
we'll
really
be
awesome.
updating the website pretty soon. So by the time this podcast launches, it should be live, and it'll have, where our goal is to have an outline of what the speakers are going to be talking about, so you know what to expect. All about the vendor trade show on Monday. That's going to be super awesome. There's a lot of cool things that are going to be happening that we haven't talked about yet. So
a vendor trade
and
show.
what is the website so that people can check that out?
It is ventureworkshop.co. So that's the best place to go, or you can check out Instagram / Venture Workshop. Both of those we're trying to keep active. And then there's a team of a couple other producers that are helping put it together alongside us because we can't handle that. And they're helping get everything activated and moving. So we've got a designer, got a new logo. I feel like it reflects a lot more of the goal and the direction that we want to be reflected. So that's why I think going in this direction, more of like an urban venture, I think it reflects that. So we're kind of excited to see how it's going to turn out.
Yeah. It sounds super awesome. I'm really excited. My family and I were going on an Alaskan cruise, but it happens to be that first week of May whenever Venture is. So
oh my gosh,
my family's not going on a cruise.
Hey,
so
there you go.
Sell me for 10 more minutes. Just sell me.
I actually changed my scheduling, and I'm actually going on an Alaskan cruise now instead of Venture. So you'll catch Calen there, but I'll be on a cruise. So.
Calen and I will be running the workshop.
I just changed my mind.
Yeah. So, oh man, yeah. As someone that went to it, it was definitely a valuable resource. I've talked before on this podcast about same day edits that I do, and that was actually something I heard before, but I got the idea from Calen and Kristine doing those at a wedding day. We've actually been able to raise our prices about $1,300 on average just from offering those kind of things. Yeah. So, and that's just one of the many, many things that I took away from that workshop. So if you're looking for some education, not only just to learn, but be encouraged and be uplifted and really maybe take a new direction with your business, or just like get back into your business and be excited about it. Something like this is definitely worth checking out. Yeah. So I want to ask you guys one more thing. Is there anything else that you want to share, you want to put out there before we're done?
I did want to mention too, so one thing that's been part of our education platform is also some of the products and the things that we sell that we've made available to filmmakers so that they can, either help increase their price or their value or their quality of films. And one of the things that we've created a lot are LUTs for a lot of other wedding filmmakers. So kind of created some color grades and they've done really well. I feel like we've gotten a lot of great feedback.
Calen is a self-taught colorist.
And I'm still wanting to learn from other colorists. But yeah,
he still is like constantly like self-taught, as in that's still a constant thing. He's always like teaching himself stuff. But he is like so good at it. And one of the things he realized that was like so lacking in our industry was just I felt like he would just go to films and say, this film was filmed incredibly. If it was just colored just a little bit more professionally, they could probably, I've heard him say they could charge $1,500, $2,000 more for this wedding if it was just colored to look more professional. And so it's one of the reasons Calen got so like deep into, I want to make it easy for people. I want to make it so people have to take a lot of the guesswork out. How should my tones look and things like that. And so Calen's been working really hard on that. And
yeah, so we have two different LUT packs out, and I'm already working on the third one, plus a lot of other things in the works. But I mean, we also wanted to extend this to all the listeners of the podcast, that we're offering $10 off our LUTs for the next 2 weeks after this launches, and you can use the code HTFW. No, that's not it, right?
How to film weddings.
How to film weddings, yeah,
HTFW.
HTFW. Yeah. Yep. Just use that code, and you'll get $10 off totally, and you can check out our LUTs. That is at whiteandrevery.com. And you just click on the LUTs tab.
And I will say, as a user of your LUTs, they are great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's a good point, Nick.
Thanks.
I'm glad that you like them.
Got stamp of approval.
Yeah.
All right. Nick's approval on the LUTs. Okay, we have a Facebook group, the How to Film Weddings Facebook group, and we have like a minute left before your groceries get due.
2-3 minutes.
Also, sometimes they give me a 2-hour time frame, so I could be here for 2 more hours.
Okay,
we
great.
want to push the boundaries.
So our podcast is going to be 3 hours now instead of 1.
Buckle up, people.
So we have the Facebook group. We posted. Have a couple of real questions and then a couple of not so real questions that we want to get to. So to start with, if you're not a member of the group, search How to Film Weddings. Boom, you can jump in our group. We always try to include a question or two. Let me see which one I want to start with. Let's start with Peter Aponte. He asked, now that you're getting into more celebrity weddings, do you find yourself needing to change your color and editing approach? We talked about that a little bit, but tell me about these celebrities.
I'm going to say we're just, because I feel like this is part of like when you get into the luxury world, like the luxury wedding pricing and things like that. So I'm just going to group it all in together. The celebrity stuff, it's not like we're running out saying we want to film all the celebrities. To me, I just want to film all the cool people. Does that make sense?
And some
also,
of them happen to be celebrities.
Some of them happen to be celebrities. And luckily the celebrities we filmed have all been just amazing people, like just genuine people. And I just love that. So but I do think that there are a couple of things that are a little bit different. I think, especially as you're working a lot more with coordinators and things like that, when we're out filming a wedding where those are big parts of the day. When we're out filming weddings, and we know that the coordinator has put a lot of work into things, or when the florist has done just amazing work, or this is probably one of the biggest weddings of the year for specific vendors, we are definitely filming a lot more details.
I would say we do adapt to those environments, and because of those, there's certain things like Kristine mentioned where our attention to detail we would throw in a lot more in the edits. We usually like to focus on faces and the couple a lot more, but in these scenarios with higher end weddings, the things that are important to them that also reflect them are their details and their attention to all those little things that I feel like reflect them in their day. So we definitely are filming a lot more focused on details, a lot more sweeping shots, I guess you could say. And I have been adapting our color grade to reflect more of a high-end look that would feel more like, I guess,
I hope that one's in the next LUT pack.
It feels more like film-based, if that makes sense. So you get that nice color palette.
I'm going to give you a little wink.
And so,
that was a bad wink. It was terrible. But
but that's definitely what we're doing, where we want to reflect that high-end luxury feel. So we do adjust our coloring to reflect that, and we might be working on a preset that reflects
cool.
that.
All
no
right.
comment, but
next
a little.
Next questions. I got the wink. If you're watching on YouTube, which you should be.
Hope that didn't make you very uncomfortable.
So many plugs. Aaron Tharp from 31 Films. You've heard of him.
Yes. Who's that guy?
Who is
It just says, please forgive him. I don't know if you want to respond to that. Is there anything you want to forgive him for?
We love the guy. I think the first time we met in Denver, he showed up in attire that reflected his personality.
No.
What? I'm just kidding. No, we were just hanging out, and I think he
No, he said he was really tired and he was coming back from filming a mountain wedding and it was a long drive and he was dressed more casually and he said we showed up dressed a lot more like, dressed up or whatever. I don't know.
Like how you dress. Yeah, like how you dress.
Just our casual Tuesday. So I didn't have a ball gown on, but whatever. No, but he said, please forgive him. I'll be fully honest. I did not even notice that he wasn't dressed to the T. I think again, his company is like one of the companies that I just like worshipped as a little young budding filmmaker. And, just thought, do you guys remember when they had that one film with like the guy's deep voice on their website, and I just would watch it. Yeah, they're real, and I would just watch it and just.
Voice.
That's actually what we talked about when we hung out with them. We're like, dude,
who's
this guy?
And so I've just always felt like they're amazing, and I just respect their work a lot. And so he could have shown up,
Aaron.
and we love you, and so
We've only hung out once.
forgiven. Yeah.
There you go. All right.
I have one question, Nick. I'm sorry.
Okay.
There was a cool guy that
Sorry.
jumped in.
Sorry.
Two more.
I'm going fast. I know Nick has to go too. There was a really cool guy. His name's John Bunn. He asked in the group, what do you think of Philip Harbuck? And I know that Kristine wanted to take this one on before we wrap up. So what do you guys think of Phil Harbuck?
What a nerd.
That's it. That's it.
No, don't get us out there.
And that's it.
We love Phil. We love
From
Phil.
Sight and Sound Films, he's our
Sight and
brother-in-law.
Sound.
So we love that guy.
Yeah. So
Keep it in the
he's
family.
hilarious. Yeah. We love Phil, of course.
And thank you to everybody for asking the questions on our Facebook group. Nick, land that plane, buddy.
Thanks first off, before we officially land the plane, where can people find you if they want to just learn more about you or get your LUT packs or anything like that?
So find us online. Don't come find us in Denver or we'll be too creeped out.
So online, whiteandrevery.com. That's white, I-N, Revery, REVERY.com. And we have like a workshops tab and a LUTs tab, so it's easy to find our stuff. And then we're pretty active on Instagram, which is also White and Revery. So those are the two outlets that we pretty much use most of the time. So you can definitely check us out there.
Yep. We like Instagram a lot.
Don't we all?
Don't we all? Well, Calen and Kristine, I want to thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. We really appreciate you guys taking the time. I know our listeners can learn a lot from some of the stuff that you said. And again, if you need some help with your workflow in Final Cut, they have a great course. LUTs. Also, Venture is coming up in just a few months, so you definitely want to check those things out. If you're watching this on YouTube, be sure to subscribe to our channel. Share this with someone that might find this information helpful. Rate and review us on iTunes or Stitcher or wherever you're listening. And until next time, see ya.
See ya.
Bye.